This video will be covering all of the aspects of putting together a professional interview. Interviews can be very challenging for some students because they might not be able to find someone to interview, or maybe they don't want to take too much time of the person, so they fly through all of their questions. Whatever the case may be, I hope this video will help you understand the important parts of the interview. The first part of the interview process is obviously finding somebody to interview. There are a multitude of people on college campuses that are able to be interviewed. Just make sure you communicate in advance and set up a time that they are able to talk. Once you have found somebody, come up with the questions. You don't want your questions to be quick, simple questions that you didn't put a lot of thought into because the interviewees they're not going to be able to give in-depth answers. So make sure you put thought into your questions and think about different shots and footage you can get based off of your questions. Another area that is going to be important is something we really have not discussed yet, and that is lighting. Lighting is actually a very necessary part of the interview process. You want to always make sure that your subject is the focus when the camera is on them. You do not want them to be washed out or blend in with their surroundings. The easiest way to do this is to control your lighting. In the example that I will be showing, I used umbrella lights to make sure that my subjects were always lit well. I know the school has a multitude of lights for photography that can be used to help light your interview. I also recommend a good contrast between your subject and the background if possible. This allows the subject to stand out even more if that is what you desire. Here is an example that I shot that has a really defined contrast between the subject and the background. Also notice how clean the lighting looks and allows us to only focus on the subject. The next important part of a good interview is the cutaway footage. We talked about this in prior videos as well. Cutaways will be your best friend in a lot of video content. As I mentioned in another video, nobody wants to stare at the same person for 5 minutes. Cutaways allow you to break up the subject's interview with interesting shots of what they are talking about. They also allow you to avoid jump cuts from the interviewer to the interviewee. Watch this example that I put together. I interviewed the pastor of a church, and notice how his answers are broken up by the things that he was talking about. This means that for a good interview, you need to make sure you have put in the time to acquire more than just the interview. So if you are interviewing the basketball coach on the season, make sure you have footage of the team at games and at practice and various items that he talks about. Now the last main part of the interview is again going to be shot style and variety. The 5 main shots used in an interview are the establishing shot, 2-shot, 1-shot, questions, and naughties. The establishing shot is usually a very wide shot that shows the location of the interview. It is not the most crucial part, but it helps people connect to the setting. The 2-shot is a visual introduction to both interview participants. This is usually a wide shot, just like the example you are seeing here. Notice how this shot gets both the interviewer and the interviewee sitting down and getting acquainted. The 1-shot is the shot that begins to concentrate on the guest and will have an overlay of their name or title. You can see that in this shot we focus on Chris and it gives him the name and title. Finally, questions and naughties can go hand in hand. As I mentioned, nobody wants to stare at one person forever. So oftentimes in an interview, we see the interviewer asking the questions and maybe responding to the interviewee's answer. Make sure you have footage of you asking all of your questions. A lot of times you will hear reporters say that they ask all of their questions again after the interviewee has left. This is actually necessary if you don't have 2 cameras. Naughties are when you cut back to the shot of the interviewer nodding along in response to an answer given by the interviewee. Again, these are often recorded separately. And it may feel awkward at first, but trust me, it looks a lot more natural than you think. That wraps it up for this video on interviews. Just remember to try to diversify your shots by adding things such as over-the-shoulder shots and close-ups and cutaways.